Well, good morning. Um, it is a unique episode today. We're talking about this is my Nifty 50. This is my go-to lens. So this basically, I use this for portraitures. This is what I'm talking about when I say prime lens. Notice there's only one ring that twists. It controls the focus, and this is the Sony 50mm 1.8 aperture. It's pretty fast, it's pretty soft, but it's pretty cheap, and that's why it's called the Nifty 50. It's usually like pretty cheap, pretty standard. You get these like I know Canon has something similar, and it's a little bit smaller, but 1.8 is pretty fast. Usually it's really good in the light, really good for portraits. I typically use this in my camera bag, and then I also have a 20mm. I think this is really good. They have a 55mm I believe it's 1.8 that is Zeiss. So Zeiss is typically like, they have a formula of how images get sharpened within the lens, and then they use that to build the lens. Versus this is a Sony native lens. This is going to be something that Sony builds without using the Zeiss formula. But overall, this is my go-to lens for portraits. It doesn't necessarily zoom in or out. I definitely have to get close. The biggest qualms I've had with it is lens hunting. Lens hunting is when they focus in and out. It's not really good on APS-C. So like if you were doing an autofocus, you would have to go into single shot, not continuous. So then that way it stops less of the lens hunting or the focus hunting, or bouncing is what it's called, or some people call it, I don't know. But typically, overall, it's really good. It's really fast. I don't recommend this for event photography. I do not recommend this for event photography. If you're using a Nifty 50 for events, you may want to rethink your lens. You may want to go to a zoom lens. Those things typically won't hunt as much on the Sony A series bodies. And as far as what I can see, I think the next one is a 24-70 Zeiss lens, which is not bad, and then up above that is a G series 24-70, which will definitely put a dent in your bank account, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Now, I only use prime lenses because I feel like they're sharper, but this lens compared to the Zeiss 55mm is not. It's a little softer. It's like the soft baby brother of that lens, and I think Sony did an excellent job. And then they just released not too long ago a Sony native 85mm. Typically prime lenses are always going to be good for portraits. Like, they're always going to be good for faces. They typically focus well. They give you that nice compressed background, so everything's all beautiful, like it looked like it's shot on the new iPhone portrait. But yeah, if you're looking for a cheap but cheap but like really good quality lens, like most of my work is done with this lens. And then my next lens is a 20mm. I only use a 20mm when I'm doing like landscapes or like real estate photography, because then I can get those nice HDR shots. Oh my god, this lighting is really driving me insane. Anyway, so yeah, that's my little take on the Nifty 50 Sony, the Sony 50 1.8 series lens. If you want, I can do more lens reviews. If you're looking at a particular lens, let me know. Just post in the comments below, and I'll go ahead and give my 2 cents on what I think that piece of glass can do for you. But more importantly, you shoot on full frame. This is good for a full frame Sony camera, as well as a crop sensor camera. What I mean by that is that, like, usually there's full frame 1:1, and then crop sensor usually does like 1.5 to 3. So then usually, like, if I'm shooting on a 50, it'll look like an 85. Versus if I'm shooting on a 20, it'll look like there's a whole formula and math to it. So like, if you get a crop sensor camera and you get a full frame lens, more than likely if it fits the mount, which is what this is on the back, is that the mounts, depending on, Sony does a lot of E mounts and A mounts and NES mounts, so you can go and just put this and boom. But then they have like a little lens converter, so you can get the lens converter and things like that. So there's a whole formula. I'll talk about the formula in another episode, but overall, this is my take on the Sony A series Nifty 50. Gary. Morning coffee.